Hello, you're watching 6 News on the Hour. I'm Leonardo, Puglisi. The top stories we're following right now. 50,000 people. That is the possible death toll from the Turkey-Syria earthquake that could be reached within weeks as the number overnight surges past 25,000, with hope fading as survivors begin to bury their loved ones. Trees down and power lines also down, but the worst appears to be over on Norfolk Island as a considerable cleanup begins following Tropical Cyclone Gabrielle, with dozens of calls for help. A US warplane shoots down an unidentified object believed to be posing a threat flying over northern Canada on the orders of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And we did not believe it. A former United Australia candidate speaks out about the party's claims they could win the 2022 election, and Craig Kelly could be PM as he launches his own party. Good evening. Right now, the death toll from the earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria continues to surge, overnight passing 25,000 and now could more than double to 50,000 within weeks. Some survivors, including young children, continue to be found, but hope is fading. We're also now learning there have been close to 2,000 aftershocks since the initial quake, as new drone vision reveals the utter devastation. Chief reporter Connor Aforke has the latest developments.
The death toll from the Turkey-Syria earthquake continues to rise. It is now well over 20,000 and is expected to keep rising for days, if not weeks. Drone footage in southern Turkey shows wide cracks slicing across fields, roads, streams and hillsides caused by the massive earthquakes that struck the region a few days ago. Turkish media reports water levels have reached 200 metres inland, with some 6,500 buildings collapsed and countless more damaged. More than a dozen injured survivors have been flown out of quake-hit cities to the capital Ankara on a Turkish presidential plane to receive treatment at hospitals. President Erdogan has told reporters that the response of search and rescue teams was not as fast as the government wanted, with support also continuing to pour in from overseas, including Australia. Multiple Australians have been confirmed dead, and there are also currently fears for others, some who were visiting the nations affected when the quake struck. We're also learning from Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Authority that there have been at least 1,891 aftershocks since that initial quake. The United Nations says more than 850,000 people urgently need food in both Turkey and Syria, and more than 5 million are now homeless in the latter. Some have estimated that the total amount of deaths when combining both countries could surpass 30,000 in less than a week, others fearing it could be even sooner than that.
And survivors are now starting to bury their loved ones in Turkey. Syrian man Ahmed Maldaoan sat on the ground as he bid a final farewell to his 16-year-old son who was killed. Funeral prayers were recited using a megaphone as bulldozers pulled away dust to make space for more bodies. Others on the ground are describing funeral after funeral, with that death toll again expected to rise. Trees and power lines are right now down on Norfolk Island, but the worst appears to be over following Tropical Cyclone Gabrielle. A considerable cleanup is now beginning, with more than 40 calls for help reported overnight. National reporter Austin Pollock has more.
Norfolk Island residents are cleaning up after the now ex-tropical cyclone Gabrielle hit the island overnight. Despite initial concerns, the island managed to escape the worst of the Category 2 system. George Plant, the emergency manager for Norfolk Island, said, "We're extremely fortunate that the bands of destructive winds went either side of us. So while we had a period of high winds, it didn't reach the high levels that were initially expected." A red alert was issued overnight, warning residents to stay indoors and prepare for the worst. 40 calls for help were made as winds of over 100 kilometres an hour brought down trees and power lines. Authorities have held a meeting today to plan the cleanup effort and reported that ADF support will not be needed. Gusts of 70 to 80 kilometres an hour are still affecting the island today, and beaches remain off limits due to hazardous surf conditions. The system has now weakened and is now a low-pressure system, tracking towards New Zealand. Beachgoers in southeast Queensland have also been warned of hazardous surf conditions.
The Education Minister has warned the Liberal Party that they may never get back their formerly held blue ribbon seats if they oppose the Indigenous voice to Parliament. Liberal seats in New South Wales, Victoria and WA fell to teal independents at the 2022 election. Labor's Jason Clare telling Sky News that the coalition would never regain them if they backed the No campaign. Independent MPs Allegra Spender, Helen Hayes, Monique Ryan, Sophie Scamp, Sally Stegel, Zoe Daniel and ex-National Andrew Gee are just some of those in support of it. Labor, the Greens and David Pocock have formally backed the referendum as well, while the Nationals, UAP and One Nation are against the proposed voice. A US F-22 fighter jet has shot down an unidentified object over Canada overnight, the second such shoot-down in as many days. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced the shoot-down on Twitter and said it took place over the Yukon Territory in the country's north. He added that Canadian forces would recover and analyse the wreckage from the object. Officials say it may have posed a reasonable threat and said it violated Canadian airspace. Trudeau also said he had spoken with US President Joe Biden about the incident a day after Biden himself ordered a shoot-down of an unidentified flying object over sea ice near Dead Horse, Alaska. The Pentagon offered only a few details about what happened there, including that the object was the size of a small car. It was about 40,000 feet flying and could not manoeuvre and appeared to be unarmed. It followed that initial Chinese spy balloon shot down over the Atlantic Ocean just a week ago. A former United Australia candidate has spoken out about the party's claims that they could win the 2022 federal election and leader Craig Kelly would be the Prime Minister. Jamal Duard is now forming his own party, Australians United. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has the exclusive interview.
Less than a year ago, this was Jamal Duard, running in the federal election in the seat of Reid for the United Australia Party. Now he's speaking out against the party.
Locally, we did not have any support.
The former UAP candidate has told Six News he did not have proper resources when running his campaign, and he never believed the claims that the party could form government or that Craig Kelly could be Prime Minister.
A lot of candidates, and I myself, I never believed that Craig Kelly will be a Prime Minister. I did believe that Craig Kelly could win his seat because of the wealth of resources that were mobilized in that seat, and because he was member of parliament for 12 years.
When these claims first came up last year, the only successful UAP candidate was Senator Ralph Babbitt. He told SBS he was happy with the support the head office gave him during the election. Duard is forming his own party called Australians United. The party has a similar name to the UAP and even uses yellow in its branding, the same colour Clive Palmer has used for a decade. Australians United will not be registered in time for the March 25th New South Wales election, but will be endorsing the independents potentially in both houses, and also has plans to run in future local government elections. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Labor has pledged to cut the cost of road tolls if elected in New South Wales on March 25. The pledge made by opposition leader Chris Minns aims to combat the rising cost of living and is expected to save the typical road user between $4,500 and $7,800 annually. Minns claims his party's plan will save commuters $147 million over the course of 2 years. The so-called toll cap would go into effect in January next year, and more than 50,000 road users would be refunded any charges above the cap on a quarterly basis. And I was Ivan and Mella in Perth with look what's making news right now on WAMN News.
Thank you, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, the controversial idea of shifting youth crime prevention resources from the city to the bush. But will it work? A WAMN News exclusive.
MPs in the North responded Premier McGowan's comment on parental responsibility.
Fear of mortgage defaults on the rise as interest rates continue to climb.
New Liberal leaders' response following calls for an anti-racism policy, and later Dr Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Thanks to Ivan and Melly, they're now changing pace. Taking a look at tomorrow's weather forecast right across the country, we do have relatively sunny conditions nationwide. Brisbane, partly cloudy, 32 degrees. Partly cloudy in Sydney and Canberra as well. It'll be tops of 23, 24 respectively there. 19 in Melbourne. Down in Hobart, mostly the same. Bit of a warmer high though, 21. In Adelaide, it'll be 24 and sunny, getting up to 38 in Alice Springs. Over in the west, 35 in Perth and Darwin. We have thunderstorms expected, a warm but wet top of 29. Reminder of the top stories we're following on 6 News this hour, and the death toll from the earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria continues to surge overnight, passing 25,000 and could now more than double to 50,000 within weeks. We're also now learning there have been close to 2,000 aftershocks since the initial quake. And trees and power lines are right now down on Norfolk Island. The worst appears to be over following Tropical Cyclone Gabrielle. A considerable cleanup is now beginning, with dozens of calls for help reported overnight. And that is 6 News for this hour. There is more news 24/7 on our website, SIXNewsAU.com, and on social media. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. More news coverage continues right after this. For now though, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.
When big news breaks.
It pains me to announce that I have no option but to resign from the office of Premier.
Reimpose Stage 3 stay-at-home restrictions effective from midnight tomorrow night.
6 News is there for you.
This was a scene of what some are describing as